Hey there, this is Renee Hobbs, and I'm happy to be on this panel sharing the topic of AI, media and information literacy, and older adults. As an older adult myself, this topic has a special meaning to me. And I just want to shout out to Anna and Sylvia and Fernando and Kieran and, of course, Patricia. Really wish I could be with you to participate in this, what I'm sure will be a dynamic discussion. But I'll add my little contribution here via email because I'm in South Korea and unable to join you at your conference. I'd like to just put some data into the mix because we have just completed a really interesting project called Courageous Rhode Island. It was a dialogue and discussion series offered online over 5 months. It attracted more than 1,000 participants from all over the United States and around the world, and many of them, about 30%, were older adults over the age of 50. And there are some parts of the experience that I think were particularly meaningful and resonant to older adults. I want to show you how we have been able to capture some of the powerful dialogue and discussion work that happened. I'm taking you to the portal, which is a great way to hear the voices of some of the participants who were involved in this program. And I'm going to share some components of a program that was called Conflict Entrepreneurs. The focus question of this dialogue session was, what do people need to know about social media economics and the profit motives that underpin conflict? Of course, social media economics is now coming to rely very heavily on AI and algorithmic personalization. And so there are some elements in this conversation that I want to call your attention to. The program attracted 118 people, and it was held on April 18th, 2023. We offer some information before we put people in small groups for conversation. In the opening part of the program, we talked a little bit about the economics of the attention economy and looking at the various tricks and techniques that are used to amp up social conflict as a means of gaining profit and power. We used work by Philip Margolin, who's identified 6 types of conflict entrepreneurs. You know who they are. They're the people who use conflict for pleasure, power, and profit. After we presented some information like that, people met in small groups in breakout rooms. They were given a set of focus questions. In this beautiful platform, which we were able to create with the help of our friends at MIT's Center for Constructive Communication, we were able to take a subset of the data and feature some of the voices of those participants. And so I'm just going to share with you some of those voices now and then talk about how I interpret them.
I think Elon Musk is the definition, like literally a conflict entrepreneur, especially what he's doing with Twitter. And if you look at what he posts, it's a variety of those 6 different strategies in different times. So it tricks people. He's very clearly doing it both for his own personal gain and also for his social media gain.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Here's another participant who made a comment about conflicts entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so I don't have a specific name, but I feel one issue that I've seen is the toxic mudslinging in people who are attempting to ban materials from libraries. That's where I work because they use names. If you have books that are like LGBTQ topics or certain health topics, human sexuality or growth, then we're called groomers and pedophiles and all kinds of horrible names. And I feel like these names are used by certain groups because nobody wants to be associated with those names.
So in the Courageous Conversations program, young people and old people talked together. And so there was a lot of intergenerational learning that took place.
I see a whole lot of people on TikTok who claim that their experience makes them experts. It can be hard for audiences to tell the difference.
So this idea about thinking about what counts as authority in online environments. Here's a certifiably old person. She's 72.
I mean, if you just pay attention to what's going on in Congress, you would think this country that we were all at each other's throats. You would think there was like no place where anybody agrees on anything, which is really not the case. It's very hard to be a moderate. And if you are a moderate, then you don't get covered. So that's the other thing where it goes back to the news, is the person who's saying, why can't we all just get along? That's not a story.
I think this idea about how platforms prioritize conflict is a really interesting topic for seniors and others to discuss.
So I think this distrust of this cult of personality and distrust of experts is a really dangerous piece of conflict entrepreneurs.
Yeah, this is a fascinating issue and it takes different forms.
Something else that I do is pay attention to the emotional content of what people are saying in addition to the words that they're saying. And if they seem really agitated, I'm aware of that, and it colors my interpretation. I layer that over. This person is clearly making a scene.
I think for me, the main concern that I have in thinking about media literacy and the needs of older people is embodied in a comment made by another certifiably older person.
70s. So to have a discussion with another 60 or 70-year-old woman or 80 who's afraid, you got to get through that layer even just to get down to have a conversation. They're vulnerable anyhow. So to put them in a position where they're watching TV or listening to talk radio, some people, that's their friend in the house, talk radio, they're afraid. And you have to understand that when you're talking to people around you, a lot of it is fear. And you don't want to add to that.
The insights from the dialogue and discussion programs were understood as things that had practical value in their life. People who came back to this session 2 weeks later, we asked, in the past 2 weeks, did you find yourself applying what you learned about conflict entrepreneurs? And 81% of responses reported yes. And their takeaways from this conversation were powerful for thinking about the new discourses of fear that are emerging with AI and algorithmic personalization, and to recognize when fear is used to disable us, to manipulate us, to keep us from doing our jobs as citizens in democratic societies. Okay, so that's a little provocation based on some data from the Courageous Conversations program. Thanks so much for the opportunity to share it with you today.